Call meeting to order at 5:02. So, welcome everybody. This meeting will be held in a hybrid fashion with the opportunity for both in-person attendance and remote participation in accordance with House Bill number 58 of the 193rd General Court, which extended the governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20, until June 30th of 2027. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public in particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. For purposes of in-person attendance, the town of Deerfield will host the meeting in the main meeting room of the Deerfield Municipal Offices with remote participation details noted below.
No need to read that part.
I what?
I said, no need to read that
Okay.
part.
It's gonna, that would have been good.
Yeah.
Okay, so, again, I call the meeting to order, so can I have, who is present at the meeting, starting with you, Margaret?
Margaret Nardowitz here.
Mary Raymond here.
Elaine Canoyer here.
Denise Mason here.
Blake Gilmore here. I guess, then we can start, did we get the minutes?
Yep, I sent around copies of the minutes on Friday. Elaine is our clerk. I don't know if you got a chance to look at them and had any notes or any changes that you would suggest, but maybe everyone could take just 30 seconds to look them over real quick.
Everyone had a chance to look at them. I move to accept the minutes of September 30th.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Margaret?
Oh, yes.
This is by a hand? Or do we do
I
it
don't know.
vocally?
I always do the names.
Let's do the
Okay.
name and I.
Nardowitz, aye.
Raymond, I. Norton, I.
Denise Mason, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye. And I guess that gets us right into the capital requests.
Sure, and happy to kind of explain what we're going to do next. That
Right.
that works. So obviously, we got capital requests from 3 different departments last week. DPW had 4 requests. Police have 1 request, and then of course there's kind of currently 2 separate requests from South County EMS. I think I just saw Josh log on, so if we have questions for him about his request, we can do that. So at this point, we've got the request before us. I also sent around a copy of the draft capital improvement plan with an additional column added to it, basically saying, here's how we're amending said plan. And I'll pull that up. But as Denise and other veterans of CIPC will recall, the next step is to kind of go through these requests and determine how they rank. So we've got a system of 5 points, based on, how the request, interacts with, public safety or, existing funding, and a couple other pieces of criteria. So I think, given that Josh is here, no, I don't want to play Xbox right now.
You mean you're gonna do it later?
It would be nice on this big screen. No, I just joking. Given that Josh is here, I'd suggest maybe we start with those South County EMS items. And so I think the big first one there is the ambulance. I did want to just clarify a couple things from last time around. So the request for the ambulance is $325,000. That's based off of a quote that Josh got for $315,000, plus there's some additional accessories needed to fully fit out that ambulance. So that brings us to roughly $325,000. And then I did want to note, last time we talked about what would be left in South County EMS's retained earnings after the purchase of this and the purchase of the 2 loaders. And I think we tossed out, a number of just under 40,000. It would really be a little bit under 30,000. So that's with the 325,000 for the ambulance, roughly 75,000 for the 2 loaders. Out of that existing 427,000 in retained earnings, that's you'd be under 30,000 at that point. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and join the Zoom and pull up the spreadsheet. But certainly, if anyone has questions for Josh, since he's here, might be a good opportunity to pose some questions to him.
Josh, it's Blake. Was this the schematic on the ambulance? I started going through it today and I'll never get through it, but is this a cookie cutter, or is this something you guys developed yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Blake. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, so I wouldn't call it a cookie cutter, but it is a standard production ambulance. There are no custom elements to it whatsoever. But what's interesting about that is it, to very close degree, almost mirrors the custom ambulance that was ordered by the other vendor. So it does in fact meet all of our specifications.
Great. I kind of thought that, you start off with a basic schematic and then add what you want and be able to, deal with other issues that may happen here that you don't see in California or whatever, so.
Sure. So we won't be making any modifications to the schematic. It would be delivered as presented in those drawings. Some of the additional components we need to add on to it include things such as mobile radios, plastic storage bins for all of the supplies in the back. The list goes on and on. There's lots of small things that comprise the remainder of the ask. So it's possible that we may come in slightly under the 325, hence the reason to ask up to.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes. Chief, thank you for being here. I have one ask. Would it be possible for you to put together the ambulance replacement schedule for the next 15 years, starting with FY26 when you receive these new ambulances, so we can actually add the replacements to the 15-year capital plan, and so that we can see how the ambulances will be replaced? I'm particularly concerned about the length of time these new ambulances will have to be in service to get the town, to get South County EMS to that 3-year replacement schedule. It's going to take a period of years, I'm sure. Is that something that you could put together for us in a kind of a spreadsheet form?
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple points I'd like to respond to. Yes, obviously, I'd be happy to. This will be the South County Board of Oversight is meeting tomorrow, and this is one of our agenda items. And I would like to bring it to the town meeting for the next fiscal year, that we have a capital stabilization fund. So my plan was I was going to look at what we could contribute annually so that we could meet this every 3 years. So I'd be very happy to put something together. It may be a bit preliminary until that stabilization fund actually exists and we can go about doing this. But I'd be happy to. Yes. The second point, I believe we can start contributing with the next fiscal year's budget. That fund being established, which would put us on track to make the next order in precisely 3 years from now. So, in answer to the length of service, the goal is to kind of start the clock here as year 0, and in 3 years, we're at it again. So hopefully this truck that, if we order this truck, in 6 years from now, it becomes a spare. In 9 years, it disappears.
Okay, thank you. I think we're at, I know I'm interested in looking at the asset inventory and looking to see how you plan to replace those, even if it is preliminary. It'd be good to see what the schedule looks like.
Sure thing. Thank you.
So Chief, what you're saying is that your first line ambulances will have a shelf life of about 6 years. They go into retirement for 3 years and then they're gone. Does that
Yeah, I
sound
wouldn't
right?
call, yeah, after that 6 year, so assuming we order a new one every 3 years, that means, that the new one on arrival will become the frontline ambulance. The most recent one beyond that will become the impact ambulance. And beyond that, we have spares. And those spares, with the acquisition of yet another newer one, would probably be traded in or auctioned or whatever gives us the best return.
But that's on the timeline, it would be 6 years and then 9 years. Is that what your goal is, to try to get to that point?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable with our call volume as it stands, that a first due ambulance could have a service life of 6 years.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I think this is really good because it's in keeping with what we've wanted to do, because I think our 5-year plan is too short-sighted, just as I think Julie, can talk about, or, just mention that she's on TBAC, the Town Building Advisory Committee, and so they're looking at the same thing. So, we can intersect with, what's needed in the buildings, and also with any kind of, ambulance or any kind of, thing at the DPW. We're really looking ahead a good 15 years. So when you do that, that'll be great. We can just plug those numbers in.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I think one of the big goals here is with the ambulance purchase prior to this, the one we have yet to lay eyes on. What we needed to do was go to the 3 towns and we needed to get money beyond the assessment to fund that purchase. And I don't want to have to do that again. I think if we carefully plan vehicle replacement, we can do that without additional funds. So that kind of starts here. Of course, it takes our available retained earnings and it substantially reduces what's available for the next fiscal year's budget. But ultimately, I need trucks if we're going to do ambulance work, right? So that's what it's there for, to a large degree. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So are we looking at, now looking at our priority list?
Yeah, let me just pull up the spreadsheet here, and that's got, you know, at the bottom there, just to make sure we can all see this.
And then once we fill that in, you'll send us copies of these? or-
Correct, yep.
Yep, great,
Yep.
thank you.
So the, you know, over on the far left here, we've got the relevant department, then a description of what the project is, and then our kind of FY '26 recommendations. And I've added, you know, just some yellow spots for us to fill in the new requests that we've gotten that we're processing for October 29th. And then funding sources, and the actual dollar amounts of those FY '26 requests. And again, I've added a column just to outline the new requests and any other changes that have happened. So I'll mention a couple things there. But for the moment, we might want to just start with the actual sort of scoring piece here. So right here at the bottom, it says, so a score of a 1 is a pre-approved and or pre-funded project. 2 is that it's a safety and health priority. 3 is operational importance / preventing further damage. 4 is proactive priorities, and then 5 is others. So we're kind of just trying to assign those numbers to each of these projects. So, and then down here is the ones we're discussing currently, the ambulance and the 2 loaders.
So, would that be because of the fact that they're funded, but we're not looking for funding, would that fall into the category of 1? Or is it a public safety thing that would be a 2?
I would think these would be a 2 probably,
Okay.
a safety and health.
But the fact that the money is already in place?
Yeah, though it's not appropriated for that purpose just yet, right?
Okay,
So,
yeah, okay, now
yeah,
I
I would kind of
Yep.
think of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so then, what does everybody think?
Well, I know it's coming from retained earnings, but if that hasn't been appropriated yet, then I guess safety and health is the
Right.
next. So I would make a motion to categorize that as a 2.
I second it. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're supposed to be, Nardo's aye.
That's all right. Everybody followed suit, so it's fine.
I'm just not really sure. We should get clarification on that.
Yeah,
I
so-
think Amy mentioned that you don't necessarily have.
So for a hybrid meeting, I don't think you do need to because you're all in person and can see each other. It's for remote meetings where entirely remote meetings, I believe, is when you need to do the roll call.
Okay.
But it's great to do it all the time, right?
I know, we usually do. Okay.
And then similar question for the loader, the 2 loaders rather.
I do have a question on the loaders, and I don't want to drag along the conversation or anything, but I guess I'm just curious because I don't know. When, I know that it's not even the loaders, it's the ambulances probably and the loaders. When there are private events in town and the ambulance is used along with EMS staff to serve those particular events, say they're non-town sanctioned events, they're private events, such as the road race or the D2R2, whatever, bike race. Is South County EMS getting a detail rate? Are there fees being paid for use of the ambulance, or commitment of the ambulance at those events? The reason I ask is because, of course, where we're going to have a slightly increased inventory of ambulances, we have to look at maintenance costs, storage costs, electricity, insurance, and things of that nature, which will increase the operating costs. So I'm sorry, I've asked the question, is there a fee that private businesses pay to have South County EMS stand by?
Yes, it is $85 per employee per hour. That $70 of which goes to the employee at a detail rate consistent with what police and fire receive in town. And then there's a $15 administrative fee per hour, which goes into our general fund.
do you think the $15 is going to remain appropriate given your increased inventory?
So it depends. It sounds very low, does it? But that adds up. So a 6-hour detail, we may use no supplies. It will be in town, so the vehicle isn't transporting, it's using limited fuel. Most of that cost really goes to the time that I spend doing pre-planning, doing an incident action plan, and then just existing to, for lack of a better phrase, pad out anything we do use. So an example of that would be we do a fair amount of details at Treehouse Brewing, and they pay us that hourly fee of $85. And if there is a need for ambulance transport, that on-site detail person won't be involved in the transport. They're first responding, they're establishing treatment on the scene, and then a South County ambulance is going to come transport, and there will be billing and reimbursement and all of the things. So we actually do quite okay with it, but the vast majority of that money goes to the employee working the detail.
Thanks, Josh. And my last question, I promise, is
Mhm.
has there ever been any discussion about donation of, say, a power lift by a local business? I know that Yankee Candle used to be very active in donating public safety equipment to the town. Has there
Mhm.
been any discussion about Treehouse possibly, or somebody else donating equipment?
Sure. So we've had a handful of donations since I've started, and we're very grateful for them. None of them come close to what a power load would cost, and they are all quite generous in their own right. Um, so to me, it's a very big ask to ask for a large investment like that. I think, I can't speak for Treehouse, but I can safely assume that their stance on it is that they're paying for a service, and any gift beyond that, I don't know that they view as necessary. I haven't had any donation discussions with Treehouse. Our donations have come from the Lions Club, Pelican. They've come from Yankee Candle, of course, Deerfield Academy. Those have been the big ones.
Thank you.
Yep.
So to return to the questions on the loaders, so again, I think probably similar, safety and health. And again, there isn't it's not pre-approved or pre-funded necessarily, but there is an identified source for funding at least. So 2 seems appropriate to me, but defer to the committee, of course.
No, I would make a motion to do 2 as well, because having this is really an integral part of running the ambulance, and it saves people's backs, which would be, which is a huge liability. So yeah, I would make a motion to do.
Do I hear a
number
second?
2.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those any other discussion? I'm just getting used to this.
We're not gonna
Okay.
find you. You may have to sit in
Oh.
the corner.
There you go. All of those in favor?
Nardowitz, aye?
Just raise your hand.
Both.
Just raise your hand.
Okay,
Okay, it's unanimous.
good.
All right. Where are we going to next here?
Well, so then the question is if you want to look at approving those requests, or rather, recommending them, or move on to kind of, the other priorities on here.
I would make a motion to approve those and move on to the others. I mean, we're approving them to
You're-
then send to the finance committee, so you guys are the final.
Right, You're recommending them, yeah.
So are we gonna do this as a one-shot deal, or we're gonna do this with each group that we're doing? In other words, as we go through this, when we say we approve the page, do we just do one blanket, where move that the
You
select?
probably
approve?
want to
Do each
one
section?
request at a time if you can.
So may I make a motion? I'll make a motion to recommend funding for a new South County EMS ambulance at a cost of $325,000 for FY '26. Is that good enough?
I second that.
Any other discussion?
Just a question on order of operations. So has it yet to go to the finance committee?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor?
And then what would happen if they don't recommend it?
We're,
We're-
so
we
capital,
have to come back and do anything, or no?
No.
It's up to them. Okay, thank you.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. And I guess we gotta make a motion on the loaders. I move that the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the South County EMS ambulance loaders as requested in the amount of $75,000 from SCEM's retained earnings.
I'll second that. And
Is
to be,
there
to be
any
more
discussion?
specific, it's $74,865.83.
I didn't have that one.
I would just go with the round number.
Just wanted to yank your chain.
I know, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
the only question I have, I think it was discussed at your last meeting, the 2019 ambulance that's going to remain in service, that already has a power lift?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I think both of those ambulances have power lifts on them.
Okay.
The only one I'm not sure of is the 2007, and it's got some sort of a power lift on it, but not, these things just automatically lift. The other ones are set up so that they're on pistons,
Okay.
so. Oh. All those, did I do that yet?
Well, any further discussion?
Any other discussion? Well, I did that. She already got to that point. Anybody else?
Just clarifying that both of these are going to be, the ambulance and the lifts are going to be funded through South County EMS retained earnings for FY '26.
Correct. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. I'm going to drop out. Have a great evening. Thanks for your time.
All right, and then, so we have one request from PD, and then we got 4 requests from DPW. Maybe we can start with the police request. There's just one there.
Right, and that's for architectural work for to design the addition to go on the existing police department. And this is just to come up with the actual drawing of what he's trying to do, and that way they can, at some point in the future, he can execute and go from there.
Since it's just for the architectural drawing, I'm thinking that maybe proactive priorities might fit the bill better than, safety and health. I think when we get into why they want to do it, I think it's operational importance and safety and health. I don't know, we can figure that out, but I would just say proactive priorities at this point.
I agree.
Yeah, I would make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Any other discussion on, as far as the plans go? Okay, all those, and I guess we'll,
Is it the numbering? I do have okay, we're going to talk about the project itself next. After
no, we're voting on
prioritize.
it now, so might as well have the
Okay,
discussion right now.
All right, so I'm torn because I support this project. No question, because The town's cruisers need to be undercover. They need to be protected. They can't be sitting out in the elements. However, the capital planning bylaw clearly intends for most capital requests to go to an annual town meeting, with very certain exceptions to that. And it's, the bylaw actually reads, if the capital improvement, the committee may amend or add an item to the adopted capital improvement plan if it finds reasonable cause why such information was not submitted for consideration at the previous annual town meeting, excuse me, and this was submitted last year, and must be acted upon before the annual town meeting. I do support this, but I think the reason, and I'm guessing, the reason this language was put in here is because there's probably a historical trend of more attendance at an annual town meeting. So more public discourse at an annual town meeting as opposed to a special. Okay.
I agree with that. This is always kind of felt weird about this all the time because we always, in my 10 years here, we've really looked at a lot of capital projects in the fall because that's when you figure out, you know,
That's when free cash comes in.
when free cash comes in, what do you have available? And like annual town meeting, we're always like, oh, we don't really have much money. Let's kind of just slim out. And then we usually look at capital projects for a fall town meeting. But now that you say the bylaw is kind of that way, I understand for bigger, you know, bigger projects and stuff, it makes sense. Like if you're funding a school, you're funding a new building, that kind of thing. But we always kind of look at capital stuff like, oh, what are we going to have for money in the fall? Can we knock out a few capital things? But now that you say we have a bylaw that says we really shouldn't be doing that, maybe we should look at the bylaw at some point too.
Again, I really do support.
I agree.
The request, the question on some of these, and I have to say, I fully support the sidewalk request too, but I feel the same that I think some of these requests, especially requests that are going to be more than $500,000 in the end over a period of years, deserve public discourse, deserve community input. And I think that gets back to the bylaw again. So I'm torn, and I don't know how the committee feels.
Well, I was going to say, I've got two different thoughts on that. The first one is that people have every opportunity to attend a special town meeting, and now we typically have them every year, whereas in years past, we wouldn't necessarily have that. So that's becoming more of a regular thing. And also, I think that we have bylaws, but bylaws can be amended and changed. As a matter of fact, we have a number of bylaws that we have to look at in the planning board that we have to make some changes to. So, I mean, I would recommend taking a good hard look at this bylaw and making some appropriate changes.
And I know, I think in 17 or 18, remember Bruce St. Peters was very involved with kind of looking at this specific
Yep.
bylaw and trying to kind of stop some of the overspending and, hey, we should go look at this thing. So there's kind of this back and forth, but, and I know the DPW stuff, we specifically held off
Yes.
spring and said, look, come to us in the fall
Yeah.
and get figured out. So there is kind of like, it's difficult.
And to be fair, the police department project was pushed back a fiscal year to FY '27. So, I mean, I don't want to
No, and
discount
that's
that.
also because John was very good about that and said, he presented that and he said, hey, you know, it's not like I need it today, but I just want you to keep thinking about this. So I'd feel badly if we don't push that forward since he did come to us last year. I mean, I think that was, I don't know whether that was our decision, say, okay, it didn't seem like it was an emergency. So, yeah.
But the thing is, I think he put the preamble on that for, you know, saying that I don't need this right now, so we can put it off. So I agree. I think we should address this part of it. If it was the $500,000 to build the thing, I'd wait till the town meeting, the annual town meeting.
I would say also, my read on that bylaw is just, you need a good reason to kind of take it up in the fall. And I think we've got a good reason, and John pointed it out, which is you got 10 bids on that 1888 building project. You know, the market has kind of shifted and we're seeing more competition on these public building projects all of a sudden. And you've got a contractor that is already mobilized right there. So I'm sure he's thinking, if I can get this designed quickly enough, I can realize some real savings. So I think he's got some strong reasoning there for sure.
So what do you think, Margaret?
I think, well, I could be swayed either way, but I really would like to look at this bylaw in coming years, to make sure that.
Well, I
our-
think that's something that we should
Yeah.
address it after the
Yes.
special town meeting, and
Yes.
let's get on this stuff so that
Yeah,
we can.
I think
we
so,
can
yeah. And
scratch-
then
scratch
after,
some of this out.
and after special town meeting, there'll be plenty of time to show the public the plans that John presented to us and, or maybe he could even take a little time at special town meeting to show
Mhm.
folks there. But yeah, I think it's something that we should look at later to make sure that we're following the intent.
But, I really do appreciate that John put forth, the $50,000, and he's trying to keep things at a minimum
Yeah.
and saying, instead of saying, I need a $20 million new complex.
Right.
He's being realistic about what we can and can't do. So I really appreciate.
And one of the other things that John said to us was the fact that if he leaves and the next chief comes in and tells you that he's got something that's too small and I'm gonna need to go for a bigger building, the whole bit, if he already addresses this at a,
This allows BB.
being fiscally responsible, it should last us maybe 10 years or so, maybe even 15, so. All right, so, anybody else? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Which one did we just vote on?
The
Four.
50 Huh?
4.
But calling it a four,
Oh,
is that what we
calling it
voted on?
And recommending, was it
And recommend.
combined?
I really screwed this up.
So I think, so we just voted on, it's a priority four, and now we need to actually vote on recommending it.
Okay, so, I move the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the Police Department addition design as requested in the amount of $50,000 from free cash. Here a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Right.
All right, and then we got 4 requests from the DPW. I think we'll start with what's just listed here as truck number 12. But this is the purchasing a Ford F-150 for about $45,000. And again, this was, kind of as with a bunch of Matthew's requests, taking an original DPW request. The original request was for over 75,000. He looked at basically moving some vehicles around and figured out instead of having to purchase an F-350, you could do an F-150. And, so there's some savings there. So that's the gist of the request, at least.
So,
And it's my understanding that Josh, he was currently, or at least Kevin was driving the 350, said he didn't need that, it was too much, and it made better sense for him to do the 150 so he could put 350 to better use.
Correct.
So I
exactly,
really appreciate
which
that.
is in the same thing is, it's also gonna be, less usage of fuel and the rest of it, so it's more, it's economically feasible for that, so. Okay, so,
Was there a ranking assigned to this in the spring when it first came on the plan?
It doesn't appear there was. I think because it was not, I think in the spring, we only looked at the ones we were recommending. So, and it wasn't recommended at that time.
The last thing we had from DPW, there were a number of things, but that was for the, $229,000 for the loader? I think that's the last that I recall. Okay.
Yeah, and there was a request also for this vehicle.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
truck 12, but it was at 77. Yeah.
so, I move the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the Department of Public Works 2025 Ford F-150 as requested in the amount of $45,000 from free cash. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Okay, questions? or-
So there's going to be a trade-in still, correct, of an old vehicle? This is not going to add to the inventory.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I think what he's doing is one of the trucks that the supervisor's been driving, he's gonna turn into a work truck. And
Right.
then, I don't know if he's got another one that he's gonna trade in. that-
Yeah, there is another, there's
Okay.
another vehicle that I believe has transmission issues and a couple other items.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Any other questions? All those in favor? This is for, wait a minute, did we rank it?
No, we didn't.
Let's rank it first.
Maybe you could recommend it and then rank it. I mean, there's no saying you can't.
I would,
That might make more sense.
Okay, okay, so all those in favor of the recommendation? Okay,
yes.
that's unanimous. Now we've got to rank it.
I would say probably number 3, operational importance.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
Can add practicality to that too. Operational importance and practicality. That's good.
yes.
I mean, I think what he's doing here is he's mirroring other towns as well as the state DOT. The supervisors have the lighter trucks so they can get out and have to inspect something if they've got to go out on the weekend and that kind of stuff. So I mean, they don't need a big truck, an F-350 or whatever it is to go do that work. And I think that's, I think that's what we're looking at, so,
And I think he's being fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So, you want to make the motion for the 3?
Okay, so I make a motion that we, yeah, for the Ford F-150 for $45,000, that be in the category of 3, which is operational importance.
Second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay.
Maybe we could move to the loader then. It's another one where
Right.
Matthews potentially realized some great savings. So again, the DPW came in with this request in the spring, and it's really, I think, been sort of a perennial request for a new loader for up at the transfer station. So this spring's request was 229,000. Matthew took a look at it, realized there were just some basic repairs that could happen to the existing loader, and so his request is only 55,000 to make those changes.
I think this might fall into category 3 as well.
Yes,
Okay.
I would say so. So, I make a motion, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the Department of Public Works loader repairs as requested in the amount of $55,000 from free cash, and that it be ranked 3rd or number 3 in the rating scale. How was that?
Good.
That was efficient.
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
back to the long-term capital plan. I know a loader typically has I know many highway supers will put a 20-year lifespan on a loader. So if, once Matt gets further settled in, if he's able to do kind of a longer-term replacement schedule on the heavy equipment, as well as the trucks, that would be really helpful.
I think we gotta give him some time on that because
Well,
he's gotta get,
I-
like you said, get settled in because he now has people that are gonna be working on these things. He's not gonna be relying on outside help as much.
Mhm.
And so these vehicles may be kept up to speed, so they may last longer in the long run than
Yeah.
what was normally done. But that's great. That's exactly what we should be looking at, but we just make sure we give him some time to get it done.
Absolutely. I hope I said that clearly enough. I want him to settle in too.
So any other discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
All right, then next we have the sewer slash drain vacuum jetter truck. This is one I don't believe was previously requested. You know, it sounds like we've been kind of cobbling together something similar and doing some, it's been kind of a rental situation. So again, it looks like Matthew got a bit of a deal from another community here. And so the request was for a little under $38,000 to come out of sewer retained earnings, so not out of free cash or other town account.
So I move that the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the Department of Public Works sewer drain vacuum jetter truck as requested in the amount of $38,000 from sewer retained earnings. Here a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, so, again, with this, I'm trying to still get a handle on it, but the fact that we're renting something right now to do this is probably, this truck is gonna start saving us money very shortly. So, and the fact that this truck was actually being retrofitted and fixed when the town that has it bought a new one. And so he just happened to hop on it. And I think it's coming out of Maine. So, so the thing is that I think that this is, in the long run, is gonna be a savings to us, because it has to be done, those things have to be done every yearly anyways, so.
Yeah, just curious, do we have any figures on what it has cost us before, up until now, like this year, using what we had?
It's, I was gonna
Yeah,
say it was,
FERCog had a price. I'm
Yeah.
trying to check if it's in the request, but I'm not sure it was.
yeah, I was gonna say at least 2,000. And that's per usage, so I mean,
Oh,
if they
really?
use it only, well, I mean, every time it comes into town, because they do it a couple of different times a year.
Okay.
So it could anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 a year for that type of thing, or even more. I don't even know how many times they come in and do it. I know, I see them doing it, so. Yeah.
Yep.
Kevin has always wanted a truck, but it's always $500,000, and he's like, yeah.
So would we rank this as a number 2, safety and health issue? I mean, given the fact that it will respond to sewer line breaks, emergency response for flooding,
Yep. So I'll amend my motion to say category 2.
I'll second that.
Okay, so all in favor of the amendment? Unanimous. Now, as far as the motion goes, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
And Chris, this leaves about $950,000 in the sewer retained earnings?
Yeah, it's right around there.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, I think this is our last one. Christopher? we on?
Yes, so the sidewalk replacement plan, so again, just to reiterate, so Matthew using chapter 90 funds, got a consultant to do an actual inventory of our existing concrete sidewalks, use do some photography and basically rank the quality of those sidewalks. And then the idea is each year take about $50,000 and put towards actually making improvements on those sidewalks. So this is the initial year of that, and so he's just requested a flat 50,000 for it.
So, and this would be back under category 3, or what would we be thinking about that?
That, I would say that's under safety.
Again, because the sidewalks are tough.
Yeah.
So we don't have this, we don't have the plan yet, right?
Correct. We will have it probably by the end of the fall. And so, depending on the timing of things, this is one, maybe you look at it annual town meeting. Of course, it'd be nice to have it before then if you are going to try to do a sidewalk project.
Completely agree. I think that's because it is a safety issue clearly in certain areas of town. And the fact that construction season will begin before annual town meeting is held, to have a little something in there is probably a good idea. I commend Matt for proposing setting aside $50,000 each year from free cash for sidewalk replacement. I personally would like to see a much, once the sidewalk plan is done, and then in the future, when we get the road infrastructure management plan, I'd like to see a programmatic funding source put in place. I say this at every meeting, I swear, but to look, I'd like, if at all possible, to look at non-tax levy derived funding sources that we could commit as programmatic funding for extreme, or, urgent road infrastructure upgrades, including sidewalks. But this is a great start. This is a great start.
I would second that. I always felt that Chapter 90 should not be the only funding source for our roads and infrastructure because it leaves us so far behind. I mean, it's nice that with rural roads and Natalie Blay and the work that Joe Comerford and her have been doing to get more money into Chapter 90 is really helping us lately, but it is important to know that like we can't just only rely on that funding source to do all of our roads. We'll never get caught up. And there are serious safety issues. So I agree, we should look at some of these other ways to fund it and put that money aside. And our intention a couple years ago when we funded the first 250,000 for sidewalks, it was to, put it in, let's get it done, and then let's have another tranche of around 250,000 we were going to do. But this probably makes more sense to fund it, and this, we can adjust the dollar amount at some point once we get going and see where things are needed, but at least we could get started. But it makes sense to have a funding source with different projects. Elm Street going to be happening, and then, we have somebody purchasing the old Cumbies property. Those sidewalks will need to get done as well. So there's quite a bit to
Back at a meeting, a select board meeting from 2023, I think all these, the storm damage response was still being discussed heavily. And there was a number that I saw in the minutes, $140,000 just for the engineering for River Road. And I don't think that's been addressed yet, but that's just an engineering cost, so
yeah.
there were big things.
roads still sliding in the river. Yep.
Well, I totally agree with Margaret, and I think what's good about that is that if you look at the sidewalks, they don't all degrade at the same time. So you have to keep it up. Yeah, and I think that was the problem with years ago, the ARA money and then even ARPA money. It's like all of a sudden all these bridges, but guess what? They're all going to collapse at the same time.
No kidding.
The other thing we talked about with Matthew is just that a lot of these sidewalk projects can be grant funded. So obviously like Elm Street. And so you could almost think of that 50,000 as kind of supplementing that, maybe you get a contractor who's doing Elm and they can extend their work a little bit to cover, some other areas as well.
Or if design work needs to be done, you could
Right.
apply it, right? Yeah,
Right.
that's good.
Okay, where are we with this?
I think we need a motion.
Safety. Okay, so this is, oh yeah, so that's, public safety is number 2.
Yes,
Is it
the
two?
two,
Yeah.
health and safety
Safety
and
and
health, yeah.
Okay, so I move that the Capital Improvement Planning Committee recommend funding of the Department of Public Works concrete sidewalk replacement plan as requested in the amount of $50,000 from free cash, and that we put it under category 2. Here a second.
I will second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Great. And while we've got this spreadsheet up, I did just want to mention a couple other projects on here that have changed a little bit. So, up at the top, I think we had initially in the spring put a request in for some additional funding for site work for the 1888 building project. Since then, bids came in well below what was expected. And so, it's already underway. And so there's at this time no need for the additional capital request there. So just want to give the committee an update on that. Elm Street, similarly, I think, we've got some additional grant funding we believe is coming down the pipe. Okay, I can neither confirm nor deny. But so that's another one where there likely won't need to be, at least at this time, it doesn't appear there's going to be further town funds needed for that. And then way down at the bottom here, I did just want to mention capital stabilization funding. So I think at annual town meeting, I believe we put 200,000 towards that account. The Finance Committee is interested in having additional funds at special town meeting put towards capital stabilization. I think the number that I've talked to Brenda and Holly about is also around 200,000. So that would bring us to about 400,000 for FY26. But still figuring out exactly what that number will be. And just wanted to kind of let folks know, given that it is on the overall capital improvement plan.
So, several years ago, the level of that capital stabilization fund was well over $750,000. It was since depleted to just over, $100,000. Now, $200,000 has been put back in. So I think that, I don't want to speak for the Finance Committee, but I believe the intent here is to try to start building that back up so we have some sort of a reserve.
Hey, Christopher, so is everything on this spreadsheet now that's accurate? And if so, could you just print it out now so I have a hard copy?
Oh, sure.
That would be
Yeah.
great, so that we all have hard copy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, let me, I'll stop share here and save a copy
Thank
and
you.
print it out for everyone.
Okay, so do we have any other business?
Were we supposed to take up the feasibility study at all, or no? The change in use or the feasibility study for this particular building, was there something that we were supposed to do
I
on
don't
that?
think it came back yet, did it?
Yeah, we don't have a capital request for that
Okay,
at this point, yeah.
okay.
I don't know whether we would, because that would be, I mean, that's spread among three towns, so it may not meet the $10,000 requirement, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't have a capital request for it yet, and
Okay.
just based on how the timing is working out, I'm not sure we're gonna have a project to vote on at special town meeting. We still have a placeholder on the warrant, but
Okay.
it seems like those conversations might stretch on a bit longer. Okay, Trevor, you're welcome to opine on that if you want. We're talking about the senior center. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed?
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Did you get a new car?